Very nice. All right. Well, hey everybody. What have y'all been up to today? Not much. No.
It's been a slow news day.
Right.
Feels like a
Okay.
slow news day now.
Welcome everyone to this very special live stream that we're doing here from the Phyllis Schlafly Center. I am Jordan Henry. With me, Ryan Hite, and it's a big day. It is a historic day. This is a day that brings about a lot of feelings, I think, for a lot of people. For those of you that have had your heads under a rock for the entirety of today, the United States Supreme Court has officially handed down their opinions in the Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization case. And in that decision, they have officially overturned Roe versus Wade, Planned Parenthood v. Casey, and have completely upended the entire American conversation about what life means and what citizen participation in government means. And it's a day that I think obviously is cause for great celebration for so many people that have been working and praying for an opportunity for us in our states to do something about the scourge of abortion that has been inflicted upon our nation by the Supreme Court nearly 50 years ago. But it's also a time for us to step back and just take a look at where we are as a nation and what lies ahead for us. Because there's so much to be thankful for in this important moment. But there's also so much of a burden that's placed on each of us here now to do something with that, to actually get involved in the process. We can't hide behind a Supreme Court ruling anymore for why we can't get engaged in the battle to end, not just limit, to end abortion in America. Now it's up to all of us to be a part of a new day for our nation. And so, with that in mind, we like to let that be the frame for our discussion today. We're going to talk about what happened. We're going to talk about what is happening. We're going to talk about what is going to happen going forward and what we all need to do as our part as citizen activists to make America a better place in light of this Dobbs decision. So, with that, I would like to go straight to our on the ground guy. We have our very own intern, Mark, is joining us, and he is going to tell a little bit about what he saw whenever he was in front of the United States Supreme Court building earlier this morning, right after the decision came down. Mark, thanks for being with us. How's it going?
Thank you. I'm doing really well. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, great. So, what did you see? What was it like? Were you, first of all, I should ask, were you there when the decision was handed down or just right after it?
Yeah, so I got there, I think it was around 40 minutes before they started releasing the opinions, and Dobbs released at 10:10. So I've been going to all of the days that they've been releasing opinions, just in case. But, today was the day, and I was there for the whole thing, and I stayed, I think, around an hour and a half, 2 hours after the decision came down. And I guess, today there was a overwhelming sense that today was going to be the day. There were journalists making comments, online saying, "Oh, I have like reliable information. It's going to be today."
Unnamed sources.
Yeah, anonymous sources,
Yeah.
and that turned out to be true. But there was kind of this overwhelming sense that everyone kind of knew it was going to be today. Of course, there was, on the pro-life side, there was a lot of excitement when it did drop and people started reading through it and, realized, oh, wow, okay, this actually is good. It's what we were hoping for. But one thing that was really interesting was that the kind of energy in the crowd at the beginning, and it's been like this for the past couple of days that they've been releasing them, it was very antagonistic beforehand. both groups were in each other's faces yelling at each other. But as soon as the decision dropped, that antagonism completely went away, and both groups kind of separated out into each of their own little groups. And so it was really interesting to see, because you had one side, the pro-lifers were obviously very happy and jubilant, they were all celebrating, and then all the pro-choicers, pro-abortion people, they were on their side, yelling, complaining, calling it illegitimate, whatsoever. But it was really interesting because the groups weren't going at each other at all, whereas for the past couple of days, they were going at each other constantly, and they were getting in each other's faces, but none of that was there, which was really nice. So that was probably the biggest thing that I noticed, that I wasn't really expecting. I was kind of expecting that, once it came down, they would get really in each other's faces, but it was the exact opposite. It was very peaceful, and both groups were kind of respecting each other's spaces and having their own time. But yeah, it was really interesting in that regard.
That's fascinating. Oh, and for those of you just joining us, this is a special Phil Schlafly Eagles live stream after the release of the Dobbs decision. If you haven't already done this, please like this video, share it with other people. We got to get the word out. And don't forget to subscribe, because we're going to be putting out a lot of content in the days going forward. So please do that. Leave a comment if you've got a question. Mark was there. Wow, I did not know that. I did not know about how that had happened. So Mark, how did people, in the second that it happened, did somebody yell out what had just happened, or was everybody just looking on their phones and they saw that at the same time? Or how did it actually get announced right there?
Yeah, so I was I was on my I was kind of acting like a journalist the whole time, which is kind of funny, because each time I'm there, usually at least one person will come ask me questions, kind of assuming I'm a journalist. But so I was just kind of walking around the peripheries, taking pictures, taking videos, and of course every 10 minutes checking. And I wasn't expecting it to be the second decision. And so when I kind of knew that was it, because the Supreme Court page was taking a really long time to load. So I'm like, okay, I bet it is. And then there it was Dobbs. So I was kind of like, wow. And then I think about 5 seconds after I saw it, somebody yelled, Dobbs just came out. And then everyone, everyone kind of stopped what they were doing. And then the person on, because each group had their own speaker and microphone, and then the person on the pro-life kind of said oh yeah, it's good, it's I've heard exactly what he said, but basically let everyone know, okay, it's what you're expecting. And then everyone started cheering and clapping, and so yeah, there was kind of this brief moment of kind of anticipation when everyone kind of knew what was coming, but they just had to be sure. And then the guy let everyone know, okay, it's good. And then it all just kind of happened from there.
Yeah, we had a similar moment like that here in the center this morning amongst our staff, because I think all of us were watching. And sure enough, at 9 o'clock, there comes the first decision, and we were waiting. I was sitting there at the computer at 9:09 Central Time. I was waiting for it, and I started hitting the refresh button at 9:10, and there was nothing. And then at 9:10, 30 seconds, there was nothing. At 9:11, there was nothing. I thought, this isn't normal. It's very punctual every time they do these. And then sure enough, at 9:11 and a few seconds, I think it was a minute and a half late, I hit the refresh button, and not only did Dobbs v. Jackson appear, but if anyone's done this before, the decision watch, the way that it works on the front page of the Supreme Court, they'll put out the title and then the link to the PDF opinion, but they don't put the little synopsis until all of them are done. And when I refreshed, I saw that appeared, and the two little synopses were there below those two cases, and I thought, that's it. That's the last one today, and it's here. And it was just, I think I kind of caught my breath, and I immediately texted everyone, and we all just kind of, it's actually here. It was, we've been expecting this since the leak, but I can't even imagine the breath that was caught in front of the court. You know it's coming, but then it finally comes and it shocks you. So that's really neat to hear. So, yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. Mark, you were there for history. That was an incredible moment. which I suppose is a really good place where we should be putting in a plug for our Phyllis Schlafly Eagles internship program.
Yeah.
But anyway, phyllisschlafly.com/internships. You could be there for history too. But anyway, no, Mark, any other thoughts? I mean, any other thoughts on what it was like to be there for that historic moment?
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously very exciting and, almost surreal because this is, for me, I obviously I wasn't alive for Roe, like most people, most of the pro-life movement, which is very young. And so this was kind of like the biggest Supreme Court moment of probably, the decade and most likely our lives. And so, yeah, it was a big moment being, when it was announced, there were probably around 300 people there. Most people started arriving after the decision was made. And now I think there's thousands of, and they're all, liberals out there now, but protesting. There aren't any, all the pro-lifers, skip town like me. But, just being a part of that group and being able to say, yeah, I was there, and I'm sure a lot of people are like, remember, I was doing this when I realized, okay, Dobbs dropped, and I was like, okay, I was outside the Supreme Court when it dropped. And, I'd been there for, opinion day after opinion day and just kind of slowly seeing things build up over the couple weeks beforehand. And just, seeing it, the climax there and, all the anticipation and everyone knew it was coming today. And so it was a really, joyful moment for me because, of course, I'm pro-life and I love that. And of course, but you have to kind of channel that because I wasn't there with the pro-life group. I was there more as a stand back and take pictures. But it was just crazy walking through the crowd and, seeing people reacting on both sides and just being able to be a part of that was very surreal.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for taking some time out of your evening to be with us and share some of those memories. I did not know that. To have a firsthand account like that is so incredible. So thank you for joining us. It's good to have you on the team.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Mark. Well, I can't even imagine the excitement that must have been felt there, like we just heard from Mark. That's just absolutely incredible. But I think, and this is what we need to get into here now, what does it mean? I mean, there have been the mainstream media almost immediately just flew into a frenzy. And, conservative media did as well, but in a celebration. And I've just seen article after article being poured out. And I mean, from the get-go, so many of these headlines are just 100%, at least, especially on the left-wing side, really 100% just narrative and messaging the whole way. And then President Biden, we had a chance to see President Biden respond. He came out and gave remarks, which we weren't together this afternoon, but did you see those as well? Were you able to watch?
Right.
And I mean, there was some disturbing stuff in there, essentially giving license to their side to, the death and destruction that's being promised by some of these extreme groups starting tonight at 8 p.m. I mean, it almost immediately everyone went to their lines, but there was so much that just plainly wasn't necessarily there in this decision, or that is just a fear mongering that there's a lot of stuff we should sort out. So what exactly does Dobbs mean? Where do we go from here? What? Right? I mean, we've been looking at it all day, but what? So Jordan, you want to start to lead us through some of that, and maybe we can not take too much, people's times, but kind of give them some okay, so let's fill in some questions. Cause I know we've gotten a lot here today of people who want to know what in the world does this actually mean? And now what do we do? What do we do from here? So.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to action steps in a minute. Let's talk about messaging and what exactly did happen. So first of all, we know that this decision does not automatically outlaw abortion in all 50 states. That is not at all what this decision means. And in fact, if you go and you read the opinion, and of course, most folks don't have time to go in and read the whole opinion, I'll just refer to the very last line of the opinion where it says, "We therefore hold that the Constitution does not confer a right to abortion Roe and Casey must be overruled, and here's the key phrase, and the authority to regulate abortion must be returned to the people and their elected representatives. So basically, what the majority of the Supreme Court said is not that abortion is wrong. They said that it is not the job of the United States Supreme Court to make a blanket ruling that abortion cannot be restricted by we the people. And so what this decision does is it turns the authority over abortion law to the people and to their elected representatives. At the state level, at the federal level, this just says the court cannot stop abortion restrictions from going through. So if a state wants to outlaw abortion entirely, then that is up to that state. And if a state wants to allow abortion for all 9 months of pregnancy or any ridiculousness like that, well, that's up to that state. And so that is what this means. And that's why we're talking so much about action, what this means as far as action is concerned. Because now it's up to us, we the people, to get involved and to say, no, we do not want abortion for all 9 months of pregnancy. Yep. What we want is to protect the life of mothers who are victimized by the abortion industry, and to protect the lives of their children as well. And so now is the time for us to dig in our heels, to take action, to be smart, to be intelligent, to understand what this means, and then to go forward and actually call for some meaningful changes to take place.
Yeah.
So that, in a nutshell, very, very broad, high-level overview is what we're looking at as a result of this decision.
Yeah, and I was just going to add on. As we have talked with folks and talked about this impending decision, it's been interesting to hear from a lot of people kind of in our sphere, some of whom are not even really, pro-life is not their primary issue. They don't even really care that much if people would like to allow it or regulate it or whatever it is. But there has been, amongst people who are honest about the legalities and the constitutionality of these things, have said, yeah, Roe was a terrible court decision. It doesn't matter what you think about abortion.
Yeah.
They really did. I mean, the definition of judicial supremacy, a phrase that Phyllis Schlafly was so fond of and often referred to, you're making law out of thin air. You're creating these precedents that have no fundamental, have no foundation in the Constitution or in U.S. law. You're making it up. This is a terrible way to go about it when this belongs to the lawmakers. And that's really the heart of this decision. Is we're not talking about abortion. We're just saying this was bad policy from the court. We're taking it away. We're overruling it, giving the policy making back to the lawmakers, back to the people and their elected representatives. And now you all figured that out. Yeah. At whatever level it is, you figure that out. This was badly done from the beginning, because all this has been, Roe and Planned Parenthood v. Casey, all these have been is a mechanism by which to prevent people from taking action on abortion, specifically to prevent people from regulating it. It doesn't actually even protect abortion itself. It was just bad policy from the beginning, and that is just saturated through this decision, which we're going to try to continue putting out good snippets and quotes, because it's 15 pages. It is a lot. So we're going to continue trying to break that down in bite-sized pieces to really understand from the writings directly of this opinion, for all of you to go straight to the source, because that's what we do. That's what we want you to do as well. So that's, make no mistake, this is not a pro-life decision. This isn't even a pro-life position that Roe was terrible opinion from a court. That was just, from honest legal and constitutional minds, that was the case from the beginning.
Yeah, and there's something else that I want to get off of my chest as far as what this opinion does and does not mean. Now, one of the key talking points that we've seen from the mainstream media, and frankly from some conservative media too, has been that what this opinion does is it overturns nearly 50 years of Supreme Court precedent, which I personally hold that is not at all the case. If you look at the way that abortion cases in America have played out since Roe v. Wade, there have been so many changes. Roe, right before this decision came out, was almost unrecognizable from what Roe v. Wade was whenever it first came out back in the 70s. And Planned Parenthood v. Casey is probably the number one way that you could talk about that change. Because even though Planned Parenthood v. Casey from 1992 said that it was upholding the essential tenets of Roe v. Wade, really, there wasn't that much left of Roe by the time you got to Casey. It was under Casey and Doe v. Bolton, the companion, or excuse me, under Roe v. Wade and its companion case, Doe v. Bolton, it established the trimester system. Yeah, the trimester system that we all know regarding pregnancy did not exist before Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court literally made it up.
It was made up by black robes, not white lab coats. Let's be very clear.
That's a good line for that.
That's true, though.
But anyway, it established the trimester system to say that states could not have any restrictions on abortion prior to the conclusion of the first trimester. Planned Parenthood v. Casey came in and said, well, it's actually not the trimester thing. We're going to go with viability. So as soon as, in the court's opinion, a child could exist outside of the womb without dying, then at that point, suddenly it became possible for the states to have restrictions on abortion, which, of course, viability has so many holes in it. I mean, because the line of viability has changed as the ability of medical science has changed to be able to take care of premature children earlier and earlier in the pregnancy. And so, you know, the line has changed so many times. So to say that this case, Dobbs, is completely overthrowing 50 years of precedent, not at all the case. I don't buy that for a second.
And I mean, to your point, if you find someone honest about it, and if you go read Planned Parenthood v. Casey from 20 years later, you realize, truthfully, what they did was say, ooh, we still want to preserve this newfound right we've created over abortion, but this was all in 1973, just fraught with stuff that's no longer accurate. We're going to throw the whole thing out and just kind of redo it and then call it upholding the fundamental tenets. Well, the only fundamental tenet was that we want people to be able to kill their children. If, you know, in an elective process, I don't want this baby, so I'm going to get rid of it. That's the only thing we upheld, because all of the structure of Roe essentially is just gone and then replaced by Planned Parenthood v. Casey. So for Roe to become this sacred cow of untouchability is really just almost hilarious, because it has already, by the left, by the court again, been thrown out essentially and replaced. But no one's talked about that, of course, because we don't want to, you know, break their precedent. It's definitely a false flag.
Yeah. And again, I want to tell folks, please like, share, and subscribe this video. And if you have a question, put it in there. We've got a few minutes left, and we want to take any questions that you might have on this subject. It's a big time, and honestly, I can't even guarantee we'll have the answer, but we'll be honest with you one way or the other, because we want to have a conversation about this. This is a big moment for the pro-life movement. And so with that, I want to touch on a few other points. First of all, I want to say that we here at Phyllis Schlafly Eagles feel that we're pretty uniquely able to speak about this issue because we have such a long legacy, because of our founder, Phyllis Schlafly, speaking on the issue of abortion policy. And that goes all the way back to whenever Phyllis Schlafly first introduced the first pro-life language into the Republican Party platform. She formed the Republican National Coalition for Life to specifically uphold and extend that protection through the Republican Party platform for unborn children, and that has only increased in its protection for unborn children since Phyllis Schlafly first got involved in that fight. Of course, she has been always, in all 70 years of her public life being involved in politics, she was very active in the fight to protect unborn life. And we are truly standing on the shoulders of giants by being a part of her legacy. And so this is important to us as Eagles. And so, you know, that I think is one important thing to say. But now that this has happened, I think it's up to us, all of us within the pro-life movement, to talk about how we can protect the women and children who are victimized by abortion and take concrete action steps to do that. So let's go over just a few of the ones that we need to consider right now in this key moment. If you've just kind of had this going on in the background up until now, now is a good time to start taking notes, because this is what we need to be calling for right now here in America. First, let's talk about what can happen at the state levels. So obviously, we need to have state legislatures that are going to be bold enough to stand up right now and vote to end abortion in their states, without exception, to end abortion in their states. Now, some states are going to say, oh, we've already ended our legislative session for the spring. We'll have to wait until next year. That's where we need to have activists who will right now tell their executive in their state to call for a special session of their legislatures in order to discuss this topic of abortion and what needs to be done in light of the Dobbs decision. We need to have strong and courageous governors throughout the nation who are going to call a special session to end abortion in their states.
And if this is an opportunity, real quick, we can put a shout out. There are some states that have trigger laws, is what they've been called, that there was a contingency in state code that if Roe v. Wade was ever struck down as Supreme Court precedent, then automatically that would trigger this law in the state that would then flip over and make elective abortions illegal. Now, there's some differences. We've used the phrase no exceptions and a couple others that we can go into a little bit more, but just for credit where credit is due, that happened. In fact, Missouri, where we're sitting right now, was the first state this morning to do that. Our attorney general and our governor immediately brought that into state law and let everyone know. But also Kentucky, Louisiana, Texas, all put their trigger laws into effect today, essentially banning elective abortions. And in fact, we've heard both in those 4 states and in Arkansas, Planned Parenthood has halted all abortion procedures as this is coming down. So there are some states that they've been waiting for this moment, Missouri and others, to pounce on this and change state law. And that's a great lead to follow. I mean, the dominoes begin to fall. So I'd like to shout out to the state legislatures who've put trigger laws like that into effect. Good for you. And today those got to come into full effect, and it's really exciting.
Well, it's kind of hard to get rich off of the suffering of vulnerable women and children whenever you have to fight off a bunch of lawsuits and criminal charges. So, yeah, I can see why Planned Parenthood would be stopping their operations.
Someone noted today, they should be excited, right? Because now that they don't have to worry about doing abortion procedures, they can perform all this other medical care for women that they claim they do all the time.
Well,
right?
I mean,
this
abortion is only 3% of what Planned Parenthood does, right?
Yeah,
right?
So it should be of no consequence. Should be of no consequence whatsoever.
And I hope that you all at home can sense the sarcasm in us saying that. But yeah. So find out if your state has a trigger law. Now, just because you hear that your state has a trigger law doesn't mean that the fight's over right there. So we'll get into that in a little bit here. But yeah, definitely check out whether your state has a trigger law. Also, another thing that states can be doing and state executives can be doing, freezing all abortion funding within your state. Right now, we need to be calling for all funds going towards abortion to be immediately frozen, and instead that money should be diverted to actual women's health care. All the people on the left are saying right now, well, what are we going to do with all of the babies that are going to be born as a result of this decision? Now, of course, I think, and speaking with many people that work in this particular industry, the industry of caring for women who are in crisis pregnancies, they will all tell you that a beautiful thing happens whenever you've given birth to a child. So many of those women choose instead to keep that child and to raise their children after they've seen that that's a life, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So don't buy this whole thing about millions of children that are going to be unwanted. That's just ridiculous. But we do know that we are going to need more resources for those places where women who are in crisis pregnancies can get help. So we need to be talking and having this discussion about freezing all abortion fundings in any particular state, in your state, and using that money to fund actual women's health care who will help people help women who are in crisis pregnancies to be surrounded by a community of love and support who can give them resources to help them in their time of need. Those places are out there. There are thousands and thousands of places out there like that right now, but they desperately, desperately need our support. So let's have a conversation about that on the state level. What can Congress do? A lot of the same things. They also can have a very important conversation about where is the federal government funding abortion? Where is that happening? Because it's not just going to be in the places where you'd think that kind of funding would be. It is across the board. It permeates into all of the different executive departments. And so we need to have a Congress that is willing, that has the backbone to say, we're going to launch an investigation into everywhere that the federal government is promoting and funding abortion. And then that investigation should result in all funding being diverted from abortion to actual women's health care in light of the Dobbs decision. I think that's very important. And any Congress, even no matter who the president is, Congress can immediately call for an investigation into where the federal government is funding abortion. And that is exactly what they should be doing right now, or as soon as we get a pro-life majority on the Supreme Court. That's something that should be coming up right away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, running through all these things, I guess the question that remains for you all is, so what do I do? Where do I fit in as a citizen? Like we've talked about some of these things. You're saying what my governor and my legislators and Congress should do, but what do I do as a citizen? Well, it's time for some serious accountability. It's time for us to hold our elected officials accountable and to start pushing for some of these things that we've heard. So, I mean, let's recap here. And I know in the interest of time, we want you all to be able to move on with your evening. As big as this is, and as much as there is we could talk about endlessly, we'll try to let you go here. But I mean, let's recap. So what can we do to hold our state officials and candidates, people who are now seeking office? Remember, this is a midterm year. This should become one of the primary litmus tests, particularly for state level candidates. What are you going to do? And you can't skirt the issue anymore and talk about settled precedent, law of the land. Right. These are gone. Right. It's up to you, Bubbo. What are you going to do as a state official, as a state legislator, to stand up for human life, to stand up for the mothers of our state who've been taken advantage of by this industry for so long? What are you going to do? So, as a citizen, here are 4 things I'm going to give you that you should do. You can email and call. Those are both extremely effective. We talk about that all the time, even in the level of the federal level with Congress. You would probably be very surprised at what just a few thousand phone calls and emails on the same topic can do, flooding into an office. It can really get people headed for the hills or listening. So don't think it's ineffective, because when we all do it, man, does it work. So number 1, you should contact your governor and ask him, are you going to call a special session? If your legislature is out, call and ask an email or call the governor's office and say, are you going to call a special session back in right now to make state policy? Because this has been remanded back to the states. This has been remanded back to the legislatures. As we heard, it's not necessarily the states. That's one thing everyone keeps saying, but really that's where it ought to be. It ought to be in the arena of the states. Ask your governor. You call in a special session. Then you should ask your attorney general, is he going to enforce an abortion ban? Some of these states already have trigger laws that have kicked in. New ones are about to be passed. The attorney general needs to commit to his people. Am I going to defend this state law passed by the duly elected representatives or not? Call or email your attorney general. Now, call and email your state legislators, especially yours, but honestly, all of them. And as a citizen of your state, ask, are you going to vote for an abortion ban? No exceptions. Now's the time to be bold and stand up for life. Be bold like some of the things that we heard here, admitting past precedent. Man, this is trash. We're going to throw it out. That was bold on the part of our 6 Supreme Court justices. We'll go ahead and throw the 6th in there, even though it was a little, we don't have to quite go into that. Yeah. We'll save it for another live stream. It's time to be bold, though. So ask your legislature, in addition to your attorney general and governor, are you going to pass these laws? No exception. Stand up for life. And then number 4, 4th action step is to call your congressman. Ask your congressman, your 2 senators, are you going to use the power of the federal legislature to pursue and follow the money behind this abortion industry? Like Jordan just talked about, it just permeates through all sorts, the tentacles that reach across government with the scientific research and all the different things that it's cloaked under. that's a pervasive problem that needs to be addressed, and it's time for pro-life and honestly just transparency-minded congressmen to step up and start to follow that money trail. So call your congressman and ask if they're going to follow the money in their power as a federal legislator. So those are the 4 things: get your governor, your attorney general, your state legislators, and your federal legislators. And they each have a role in this that you as a citizen ought to be pursuing them on, and getting answers, getting commitments, and holding their feet to the fire to know that this has been, again, handed back to the people and to their duly elected representatives. So as my representative, I need you to tell me now, what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. That kind of action is due on our part now, and it's effective, especially when we all stand up and do it. So there's 4 things that you can do right now. You can even email tonight. You don't have to wait for business hours, and then follow it up with a call on Monday. That is something that you can do. 4 things, and we all ought to do. I guarantee you everyone in our office will be. So please join us in that in your state. And then email us. Let us know if you have any questions about anything to do there, or if you'd like some help organizing folks, or just send us an encouraging note. Let us know if you got a good response. We would like to know, because as Phyllis Schlafly always talked about, not only do you hold your elected officials' feet to the fire when it needs to be done, but you need to praise the ones who do the right thing for the right reason, especially, and stand up. So we want to know these things too, and be able to either help you or celebrate with you.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, to piggyback off of that, if you are in a state where you have a good trigger law in place that is going to end abortion in your state, you still ought to be contacting your state representatives right now and thank them for that. Mm-hmm. Thank them for that. Whether they passed that trigger law a week ago or a year ago or whenever they've done it, call them up. First chance you get, send them an email and just say, hey, thank you, Representative so-and-so. Thank you, Delegate so-and-so. Thank you, Senator so-and-so, for voting for this bill that put in place this trigger law, and support them during this time. Yeah. Now, you might say, again, that, oh, well, my phone call isn't going to make a difference. My email won't matter. Well, you got to believe that at every level of government, these elected officials are going to be lambasted with calls and with emails about this issue. The whole country is watching this right now. Yeah. And are you going to let it happen that there are 10,000 calls from angry pro-abortionists and 1,000 calls from pro-lifers? Are you going to let that happen? I mean, it's no wonder that these elected officials cave whenever that's the kind of pressure that they're under. Now, I'm not excusing anybody for making bad policy decisions, but it's up to us as well to do our part to get involved. Don't just call or email. Do both. Mm-hmm. Email, follow up with a call. Say, hey, did you get my email? Oh, you did? Well, let me tell you what it said. Oh, you didn't? Let me tell you what it said. Either way, and make sure that they know what side you're on and that you are praying for them. And don't just say that. Do pray for them. Yeah. And cheer on the ones that are doing the right thing, and the ones that aren't, hold their feet to the fire and let them know that you will hold them accountable, because now is the time to take that kind of action. So that's the big things that we need to be doing right now in light of this decision. And let's also talk for just a brief moment about the issue of exceptions as it relates to abortion. Now, we here at Phyllis Schlafly Eagles strongly believe that all unborn children have a right to life, that it doesn't matter the circumstances under which a woman gets pregnant. We believe that the best way to support those women who go through difficult circumstances, like cases of rape, the real help that they need isn't going to come from an abortion. Abortions don't give healing. And we've seen statistics to back that up. And we firmly believe that right now is the time to be unequivocal in our commitment as a movement to protect these women and children. It's not time to back down. It's not time to cave. If you hear people who are talking about issues of the health of the mother, I challenge you to don't just take the talking points words for it. Go and look at the data on this. Go and look at some of the studies that are out there. You can even check out some of the recent radio commentaries that Phyllis Schlafly Eagles has been putting out, where we discuss this in depth. there are so many cases in which legislatures have put in place so-called health of the mother exceptions, which, like the Doe v. Bolton decision, defined health of the mother to include the emotional health of the mother. And it's no doubt that pregnancy can be a very trying experience, but whenever you say that all it takes is emotional distress in order to qualify for an abortion, you effectively don't have an abortion ban, regardless of what the legislature may say. So it's important right now to really do the research. Let's talk about how we can protect all of the children who need protection and all of the women who are victimized by the abortion industry. Let's not settle for half measures. Now is the time to be firm, to be strong, to be clear on what we believe. If that's a gray area where you are not fully informed, now is a great time to get informed, because information wins the day. When you go into a battle and you know the facts, like Phyllis Schlafly knew the facts, that is how you can really make a difference. And so I would encourage all of you who are watching with us, who are right there alongside us, praying and fighting for the future of our nation, to be very clear on what you believe and not to accept anything less than the absolute most defense for unborn life. And I would say before we close, to those of you who disagree with this decision, who think that this was wrongly decided, I think that you should know that if you want to go out and be violent and to attack centers where women receive help in their time of need, then that, I think, makes you a terribly cowardly person. You can talk all you want about what these centers have as their stand on abortion, but these are the places where women receive not just advice on why they shouldn't get an abortion. Pregnancy resource centers throughout America provide vital services for women in their time of need. They provide all of the things that Planned Parenthood claims that they provide, but don't really do, like STD testing and like the screenings that women need. But they also provide services for women after they've had children. They provide parenting classes. They provide diapers. They provide car seats. They provide bike helmets. I mean, these resource centers are serving their communities. And if you go and you try to make a political statement by putting graffiti on these places or firebombing these places, I think that makes you, first of all, terribly ill-informed. And that makes you someone who is not helping our communities in need. And so I would challenge you right now to rethink your choices. If you want to have an opinion about abortion, be my guest. It's America still, and you can do that. But if you would seek to be violent, and that goes for both sides, frankly, if you would seek to be violent, then you need to rethink the way that you interpret your role as a citizen in this nation. Because now is the time for people to be strong in their voices and fearless in their opinions, but in no way should that ever extend to fear, intimidation, threats of assassination on Supreme Court justices. And I think that it's time for us to be bold and fearless in what we believe as a pro-life movement. Ryan, anything to add to that?
I'd hate to add to it and detract from what you said.
Sorry, I get fired up. What can I say?
No, it's it. That's I have nothing further to add. You capped it off nicely. So
yeah.
The only thing I would add is just as you said, please tonight join us in praying for peace. Join us in praying for safety for a lot of folks who have only good intentions. Churches, pregnancy resource centers. Again, as you just said, no matter the political position, you can't argue these folks aren't there to harm anyone. They are there to take care of women, even if they're doing it in a way that you disagree with. And I think that there's this whole weekend and into the days coming, we all need to just spend a lot of time covering these folks in prayer. Even if nothing happens, the worry that must come from it is significant. So please join us in doing that. I know that all of our staff will be tonight, especially when whatever kicks off is supposed to kick off, if it does or not, around the country from some of these extremist groups. So pray for that, and join us in praying that our elected leaders would have an appropriate response to that as well, and that law and order would be maintained by any official in these districts where something happens.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
That's all I have.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess we should let people go on to their evenings. We're going to continue posting materials. We're going to continue putting out emails. Check our social media feeds. You heard at the very beginning. Like, share, and subscribe, please, so that you get in touch with us in any way that we like to put out information. We're across all the alternative platforms, Facebook and Twitter as well. And then, of course, phyllisschlafly.com. You really want to hear from us and make sure that no one can censor or take away that voice that we have to you. Go to phyllisschlafly.com. Give us your name and email up at the top banner, and you'll get signed up. We'll be able to contact you directly, big tech proof. Well, for the most part, until someone comes for our email services, which has happened. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you so much for joining us in the action that is yet to come as we hold elected officials accountable and get them to move forward. And thank you for joining us in prayers, both of celebration for the great news that our country has had and our future generations have, and then also for the safety that we pray for as this situation continues to develop in the coming days. So thank you for being with us this evening. We look forward to being with you again, and hopefully it will be on just as wonderful a news day as this has been.
It's been a great day for America.
It has.
It is truly a time for celebration, a time for action, a time for prayer.